It's been about 3 weeks since I first brought Ziggy home. A few days ago, I switched him over to a regular ration balancer with his vitamins. He has been getting free choice alfalfa. Overall, he has been doing really well in his rehab. Besides finding one overgrown tooth on his dental and a few little melanomas under his tail, he really hasn't been too tricky to get headed in the right direction. His vitamin E test did come back, and that was a little bit on the low side, so I've added that supplement into his diet as well. It is really not uncommon for horses that live in Montana and don't get to go out on pasture for most of the year to have a little bit of a deficiency in the vitamin E area. I have been feeding Ziggy his breakfast first and then going over to feed the rest of the horses. I will come back in about an hour or so and check on him. It looks like I came back right in the middle of his little siesta time. I am going to refill his hay situation. He has been getting big bags of alfalfa refreshed as he goes through them. Since he has had his teeth looked at, he is able to chew regular hay quite well now. I think in the last couple of days he has finally started to really calm down. I haven't seen him pacing along the fence in quite some time, so that is really nice to see. His little mayor friend is also out of heat, so that might have something to do with it as well. I was planning on riding Ziggy today, but I didn't get a chance to really evaluate him yet, so that is what I'm going to do today. I will link all of his videos in the description if this is the first one you're seeing of Ziggy. But the quick version is I bought him at an auction for $600. He is around 18 years old. Prior to coming here, he was working on a dude ranch, so he should know quite a bit as far as basic riding skills are concerned. I've only caught him a few times, and the last time I did was when we went to the vet and he had his teeth worked on. He was a little bit hesitant to let me catch him, but really he wasn't too bad. I'm gonna go ahead and give him a quick brush. This guy is all business once his halter is on. I think he's really excited to get out of this pen and start being ridden. Given his background, I absolutely could have ridden him probably the day I brought him home, but I really like these horses to get a chance to detox and start to feel comfortable before I ever start riding them. Ziggy was not in terrible shape when I bought him. He just looked like he had a little bit of a rough winter. As I'm brushing over him today, it does look like he's starting to build up more top line and a lot more muscle mass. Being an Arabian, he is a little bit on the thin side naturally. His top line and overall muscling should continue to improve with the diet that he's currently on. And he hasn't been getting any crazy supplements. He was on a mash for a few weeks, and now he's back over to just regular alfalfa hay. He's getting a ration balancer with vitamin E, and then he's also getting a vitamin and mineral supplement. He needs each of those things to meet his regular requirements that every horse needs. The few little bites that he had when I bought him are starting to grow their hair back and looking really nice. Overall, I'm really happy with his condition and how he settled down over the last couple of weeks. I've also noticed his hindquarters are starting to fill in a little bit more with muscle. He was a little bit more on the reactive side when he first got here. One thing that I haven't really addressed fully yet are his feet. I like them to have all of their thrush resolved before I go trimming them. He does have very flat feet, so if I were to give him a good trim, then he would be standing more on the sensitive parts of his feet. He doesn't really know how to ground tie, so I'm just going to stand on his lead rope while I check out what his feet are looking like now. His feet have been getting picked out regularly, and I have been putting the thrush medication on him that I like to use. I will probably go ahead and trim his feet sometime this next week. You really can't tell how the thrush has dried up because he has been standing in dirt, but there really aren't any more mushy areas except right at the tip of his frog on one of his feet. The hoof dressing I use tends to get down in all the cracks, so if there's any funk going on, it helps them exfoliate their sole, which is happening here. His bars are a little bit overgrown, which will be able to be cleaned up at the next trimming. I have been testing out a new vitamin mineral supplement that I don't usually use. This is one of the reasons I prefer pellets. He's got probably a quarter or more of his supplements just left in here because he doesn't like the taste. I didn't notice it when he was getting the mash because it all stuck together, but now that he's on regular grain, I might have to switch him to something else so I'm not wasting money. Today, I'm just going to go ahead and give him a little bit of an evaluation as to what kind of basic things he knows. I can tell right away that this horse has had a lot of natural horsemanship things done on him. He was having some trouble understanding how to move forward and get lunged in a little circle. He thought I just really wanted him to move his hip around. It's not a big deal. He's not doing anything wrong. He's just not understanding what I want from him yet. When he finally figured it out, he was a little bit unsure if this is what he was actually supposed to be doing. I moved him up into the trot and saw that he was really sound. Apart from him just not understanding exactly what I want, he is being really good. Depending on the outfit that they get used on, some of these horses never get lunged or have any groundwork done on them. I can tell that he's a little bit worried about what exactly I'm doing. I did do a little test to see if he backs up when I wiggle the lead rope. This is actually one thing that I never do or teach my horses. Some people are really into it, but it is something that I just don't do. I do, however, like all of my horses to understand how to give to pressure and put their head down for me. At first, he has no idea what I'm asking him, but I'm going to reward him for every single little try that he gives me. He is actually a very smart and seemingly sensitive horse, so it doesn't take him very long to figure out what exactly I want from him. After he figures out how to lower his head, I'll go back in and see if I can get him to hold it down for just a short amount of time. This will just give me a good idea if he understands pressure and release and then constant pressure. So here he is just holding his head down in the same spot for me, which is awesome. And I am going through these things pretty quickly with him. He is still a little bit confused as to what exactly we're doing, but he's using his brain and trying to figure everything out. Once I'm done with that, I will test out to see if he can relax and give his head to me in each direction. This is something that all of my horses know right after they get a halter on them. And as I suspected, this guy is stiff as a board. If you are continually moving your horse's hip around like a lot of the natural horsemanship gurus do, they really can have a hard time just standing still and bending their neck around. Physically, this is not hard for a horse to do, but if they're always getting their hind end chased around when their nose tips to one side, it can be hard for them to grasp mentally. It is a fairly simple concept that usually doesn't take a long time to teach these horses. Ziggy really was having trouble understanding that he was allowed to stand still while his head came around. So I tried really hard every time he tried a little bit for me to release him so he kind of understood better. Most horses have an easier time doing this to the left side, so that's what I started with. Most horses figure this out in one pretty short session and can bend their nose all the way around until it touches their shoulder pretty much. Either Ziggy didn't understand fully or he is really stiff and sore just from not being used in this way. I did my best to reinforce what I was trying to teach him, but he was still having trouble keeping his feet in one spot. He does understand the concept, but I think he's just really stiff. I'm going to go ahead and do a little reset by having him drop his head for me. And all of these things will aid in keeping his body nice and supple. You can do carrot stretches to improve the mobility of the horse's neck and vertebrae. I would really prefer that he just learns it on a pressure and release type deal. He's still not 100% sure, but he's doing better at keeping his feet in one spot for me. At this point, I think he may be just really stiff through his neck and back. I don't need him to do it perfect today, so I go ahead and move on to the other side, which is actually worse than the first side. He is quite a bit more stiff and has trouble just simply tipping his head towards me this direction. I'm going to go ahead and try and release him, the first sign that he has a little bit of give. He would probably have no trouble with me riding him, even though he doesn't know how to do this. But for his long-term success and to make sure that he's staying nice and loose in his back, I think this is going to really help him in the long run. His top line is quite weak now, and if he's not able to simply turn his head from side to side, he's going to have a hard time keeping it supple. Once I'm done looking at those few things, I'm going to go ahead and just trot him around a little bit more to try and get his body loosened up. Most horses his age will have the basic concept of some type of lunging, so I'm just figuring out exactly what he will respond best to. It is really important that all horses know how to do this, especially when they get older, so in case they have lameness troubles come up, they can get evaluated properly by a veterinarian. It also helps you as an owner look at your horse and see if maybe something is not quite right about them. Ziggy is just kind of cruising along. He does have a pretty easy time figuring out how to stop and change directions. He's not running off or being too scared, so this is a really good indicator that he is fairly comfortable with this. I would have a better idea about what exactly Ziggy knows if I watched the previous owner ride him at the sale, but I did not get a chance to do that. I saw a very short video of him being ridden around a track, and that was pretty much it. This is pretty interesting. You can see right away how tense Ziggy is through the top of his back after just that short amount of work. He kind of holds his head up like a giraffe, which I think is probably more than he needs to, even for an Arabian. This is a good view of his hooves, and you can actually see exactly when I bought him, and that is the top ring.
What are you doing? It's okay.
All of the changes I made to his diet will show up in his feet. I'm hoping that they will improve for the better as we get along in his feeding program. I was thinking this guy was ready to be ridden, but with this tense of a back, I would worry about the saddle fit and him going sore quite rapidly. Since I just taught him how to lower his head, I am going to go ahead and put that down and see if that gets him to relax his top line a little bit. It is wild how just putting his head down really made a big impact. And dropping his head another inch or two really looks a lot normal now. I'm kind of surprised he doesn't have a sore back, but that is one thing I'm going to take into consideration as I start riding him. Like most dude horses, he has a little bit of trouble backing up.
There you go. You're okay.
One of the most important things for horses that get ridden by people that have no idea how to ride is not to back up too quickly. They typically hang on the horse's face when they're scared or unsure, so horses like Ziggy learn to be pretty dull in the face. Overall, I'm really happy with what I found out about Ziggy today. Typically with a horse like him, I would put the first couple rides on him with whatever bridle and bit he's used to using, but I'll probably go ahead and ride him in a halter. I don't think I'll have any trouble steering him. He might be a little bit iffy on the whole stopping, so we might test that out a little bit more before I swing a leg up over him. Once I start riding him, he should be able to gain a lot of muscle much more quickly. I did happen to buy a new saddle for him that I think is going to work out perfectly. It's supposed to come in the mail tomorrow. I think for 3 weeks he is right on track. He wasn't in terrible shape when I got him, and he just needed a few tweaks to his diet. This is what he looked like the day I brought him home. His winter hair looked like he had a little bit more weight on him than he actually did. And even though the changes that I'm seeing in him are very slight, he is definitely heading in the right direction. Even though he's 18, he should be able to be ridden fairly regularly. So I think I'm probably gonna have a super fun summer with this guy, getting him in tip-top shape. Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.